The army base hummed with routine sounds, the steady rhythm of boots striking pavement. Distant commands barked through the air, and the faint clatter of gear being adjusted. The sun had just climbed high enough to cast a neutral, clear light across the training grounds, revealing the dust motes drifting lazily in the slight breeze. The scent of freshly cleaned uniforms mixed with the faint aroma of engine, oil from parked military vehicles nearby. She stood at the checkpoint, her posture rigid but composed. The crisp fabric of her uniform pressed against her skin, cool despite the growing warmth of the day. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, the strands occasionally brushing her neck, causing a brief shiver she fought to suppress. Around her, other soldiers passed with murmured greetings and quick nods, but none paused to look her way. The two officers approached with deliberate steps. Their faces were stern, eyes scanning her bag before meeting hers. Without a word, one of them held out his hands, signaling her to surrender the canvas bag slung across her shoulder. Her fingers briefly tightened around the strap, the rough texture grounding her as she carefully lifted it off. As she handed the bag over, the fabric shifted under her touch. The weight inside solid and familiar. The officers unzipped it slowly, the metal teeth of the zipper clicking faintly in the quiet morning air. Their hands moved methodically, first pulling out standard items, a folded map, a weathered notebook, some rations. The smell of worn leather and faint hints of gun oil drifted from within the bag, mingling with the subtle metallic tang in the air. Her breath was steady, but beneath her calm exterior, a spark of anxiety flickered. She watched the officers' faces closely, noting the slight tightening of their jaws, the subtle narrowing of their eyes. The other soldiers nearby had quieted, their attention pulled toward the unfolding scene. The buzz of base activity seemed to fade, replaced by an almost tangible tension. As the officers continued searching, one of them paused longer, fingers probing deeper into the bag's hidden compartments. The fabric creaked softly under their hands. She shifted her weight slightly, the rough concrete underfoot pressing against her boots, a reminder of the harsh reality surrounding her. Her heart thudded, not from fear but anticipation. She knew what was coming, knew the weight of what she carried was far more than mere equipment. Yet she stood firm, the uniform pressed crisply on her shoulders, the cool morning light illuminating the faintest glint of determination in her eyes. Then came the moment, the touch that would change everything. The officer's fingers hesitated as they brushed against something unfamiliar beneath. The layers of maps and gloves. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled it free, unfolding the carefully wrapped cloth to reveal a gleaming object. The polished surface caught the overhead fluorescent lights, casting sharp reflections that danced across the room's sterile walls. A heavy, metallic scent mingled with the faint aroma of sweat and leather as the rare golden Colt was laid out on the worn wooden table. Its surface was immaculate, the metal shimmering with a warmth that seemed almost alive under the harsh light. Intricate engravings adorned the frame, telling stories of history and honor etched into every curve. The soldiers nearby fell silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. Whispers died mid-air as the rare weapon drew every gaze. Even the hum of distant machinery seemed to pause, swallowed by the sudden gravity of the moment. The commanding officer stepped closer, his brows furrowed, lips pressed tight, as if trying to process the impossible sight. The girl in uniform stood motionless, her breath steady but her heartbeat pounding in her ears, her hands clenched at her sides, nails pressing into her palms without her noticing. Despite the sudden stillness around her, her mind raced through memories tied to the Colt, its journey through generations, the sacrifices it symbolized, the unspoken legacy she now carried. The cool air of the room contrasted with the warmth radiating from the golden surface, creating an almost electric tension. The faint clink of metal against wood echoed softly as the pistol was examined from every angle. Soldiers exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of shock, awe, and something like reverence. She met their eyes without flinching, feeling the weight of their silence pressing down like the uniform she wore. The rare Colt was more than just a weapon. It was a testament to resilience, a badge of honor hidden in plain sight. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken questions and a quiet understanding that this discovery had changed everything in that small, crowded room. The commanding officer's footsteps echoed softly as he approached the table, the solid clack of his polished boots cutting through the heavy silence. He leaned in, eyes narrowing to study the golden Colt's delicate engravings, tracing each curve with a mixture of scrutiny and disbelief. His breath caught slightly, the faint metallic scent mingling with the lingering odor of sweat and gun oil in the room. Around him, the gathered soldiers shifted uneasily. Whispers hushed into murmurs of astonishment. Some exchanged furtive glances, others simply stared, mouths slightly agape. The tension was palpable, like the charged quiet before a storm. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath seeming louder than the last in the enclosed space. The girl in uniform felt every eye on her, the weight of their attention pressing down like the heavy fabric of her jacket. Her chest rose and fell steadily, but inside, a mix of pride and apprehension churned. She straightened her back, the crisp lines of her uniform emphasizing her resolve. Her fingers twitched slightly at her sides, the rough texture of the barracks floor grounding her. She remembered the stories her grandfather had told her. The Colt was not just a weapon, but a symbol of unyielding spirit and honor, passed through generations. It was a reminder of sacrifice, resilience, and the burden of legacy. Now in this stark room, illuminated by natural light filtering through the barred windows, that legacy had become tangible. The commanding officer finally broke the silence, his voice low but firm, cutting through the murmurs. "This isn't standard issue, explain." Her eyes met his squarely, unwavering. "It's a symbol, sir. More than a weapon. It reminds me why I serve." The room held its breath, the officers exchanging uncertain glances. Respect slowly replaced suspicion in their expressions. As the weight of her words settled, the Colt lay gleaming on the table, its golden surface reflecting the neutral daylight, silent but commanding. Outside, the faint sounds of the base continued, the distant drone of engines, the muted chatter of soldiers on patrol, yet inside, a quiet understanding had formed. The unspoken truth of the rare weapon echoed louder than any command, binding them all in shared reverence and newfound respect. The commanding officer's gaze lingered on her for a long, measured moment, his expression unreadable. The light from the tall windows spilled across the table, catching the Colt's polished surface and scattering golden highlights across the dull gray walls. He reached out, lifting the weapon with deliberate care, as though its weight was more than just metal. The faint click of the hammer as he checked, its mechanism broke the stillness like a dropped pin in a silent hall. The soldiers standing nearby watched with quiet intensity, their earlier skepticism now replaced by something closer to awe. The air inside the checkpoint room felt heavier, the muted hum of the bass outside seeping back in, distant voices, the grind of a truck engine, the rhythmic clang of boots on concrete. Even those sounds seemed softer now, subdued in the presence of the rare artifact. She stood perfectly still, her hands resting loosely at her sides, though her shoulders remained squared. There was no trace of fear in her eyes, only steadiness, the kind born from carrying a truth too valuable to be flaunted. She watched the commanding officer's hands as he turned the pistol over, his fingers brushing against the smooth gold finish and the fine engravings that seemed to whisper of another time. Finally, he laid the Colt back onto the table, wrapping it once more in the cloth with a precision and gentleness that spoke louder than any words. "Keep it safe," he said quietly, almost to himself before pushing it back toward her. She stepped forward, her boots scuffing lightly against the worn floor, and took the weapon with both hands. The weight settled back into her palms, familiar, solid, and reassuring. A subtle nod passed between her and the officer, a silent acknowledgement of mutual respect. The moment dissolved as quickly as it had formed. The officers resumed their duties, the murmuring soldiers dispersed, and the bass's rhythm returned. But something had shifted in the air. The girl in uniform walked away, the Colt secured once more, sunlight glinting briefly off its golden frame, before disappearing into the shadows of her bag. Outside, the clear daylight bathed the barracks, rows of vehicles standing at attention, and flags stirring faintly in the breeze. The golden Colt had spoken its own truth, and every witness knew they had seen something that would not be easily forgotten.